Hello. Today I'm going to talk about FTA, Free Trade Agreement in East Asia. Free Trade Agreement is sometimes called the economic partnership by including not only goods, services, and the capital transactions as well as the human mobility. Now, in Asia or East Asia, there are two alternative approaches at work right now. First approach, which might be called the East Asia's free trade agreement, own free trade agreement in East Asia, and that is represented by RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. That includes the 16 nations in Asia or East Asia, ASEAN nations, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, 10 countries, plus 6 other Asian countries, which I'm going to explain in detail a little later. So that's the East Asia's own FTA or economic partnership. That's the first approach. So that sounds like economic community in East Asia vis-a-vis EU in Europe and the NAFTA in North America. The alternative approach is the so-called Pacific Rim approach. Pacific Rim's TPP, the Free Trade Agreement or Economic Partnership, represented by TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, which includes the 12 nations that originated in the so-called P4 arrangements. That's the free trade agreements among 4 small nations across the Pacific. And that arrangement has been extended to include 8 more nations. So now we have 12 nations. As you know, the TPP was signed in February 2016, but domestic approval is yet to be reached. Now let's look at these two alternative approaches in somewhat more detail. Here is the list of individual countries. First, Asia's own Free Trade Agreement, RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which includes these 16 nations in East Asia and also Asia in general. This idea originated in this ASEAN Association of Southeast Asian countries, consisting of 10 countries here. So the 10 countries plus other major Asian countries like China, South Korea, India, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. So now these 16 nations are talking to each other to form economic partnership. And right now, of course, ASEAN nations are really in the process forming a very strong economic community, whereas the rest of the nations are in somewhat of a trouble or forming any kind of close economic relations due to the economic, political, and strategic kind of conflicts among Japan, China, Korea, India, and so on. So it takes some more time for them to form economic community in Asia. Whereas the TPP across the Pacific, which includes the Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and the 4 nations in Southeast Asia, plus 5 nations on this side of Pacific, U.S., Canada, Mexico, actually these nations are the members of NAFTA, and then plus 2 countries in Latin America, and the small nations like New Zealand, Brunei, Singapore, and Chile first formed the free trade agreement, which is called P4, and that's been extended to include all these major countries like the US, Japan, and so on. So this is the idea. Now, of course, there are advantages, disadvantages, or pros and cons on each of these arrangements. RECP, already we see this very solid economic community in Southeast Asian countries. And then it's natural to extend this to form a East Asian economic community. And it looks very natural to have an economic partnership for East Asia per se, vis-a-vis EU in Europe and NAFTA in North America. On the other hand, if we form this kind of, if these countries form the East Asian community, very strong, big countries might prevail to influence other countries. So it's not going to be a fair arrangement, as some people are maybe afraid of, like China, which could be dominant force in this arrangement. Although other countries can get together, within this arrangement to achieve kind of power balance. So we have to wait and see. So TPP, the merit may be this rigorous free trade principle, which will benefit the members as well as the global economy as a first step towards the freer economic relationships in the global economy. And the tentative agreement has been reached, led by the United States, Japan, and so on. But the problem, of course, essentially due to this rigorous free trade agreement, relatively few countries could join. So only 12 countries across the Pacific joined this agreement. And also, excluding China, US could be a dominant force to govern or rule this free trade agreement, so some people might be afraid of. So in each arrangement, there are advantages, disadvantages, or pros and cons. So which arrangement to adopt is a question to all of us.